So you've come up with a question to answer, and that is, which is the most common frog on or around Vashon? And maybe you've actually been able to see what the answer is to your question already, looking at the data. Tree frogs certainly seem to show up on more surveys than any of the other types of frogs. However, part of this task is for you to display this data visually. You might have noticed that looking around this spreadsheet is pretty difficult. There's a lot here. It's not clear right away what it's showing. And so I'm going to help you make a graph that'll make things really clear. It'll also help us really see how much more common tree frogs are than the other frogs. What I'm going to have you do on your copy of the data sheet is come down here to the bottom left and click the plus button for a new sheet. You'll see it pop up with sheet and a number, but go ahead and rename it. And then you can make yourself a new data table on this blank open spreadsheet. And you're going to want to do it title one column species. And the next column number observed. I'm going to make these two bold. They're titles. And the different species are tree frog, red-legged frog, and bullfrog. Okay, and this is where you're going to come in here and add how many tree frogs were observed, how many red-legged frogs were observed, and how many bullfrogs were observed. And so you're going to go back to the main spreadsheet and you're going to count the number of check marks. This is going to be difficult to do without writing it somewhere. So I recommend that you, on a piece of paper, make a tally. So tally all the tree frogs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tally them on a piece of paper. After you've figured out how many tree frogs there are, you can come back here and say that there were 65 observations of tree frogs added in there. There were only 12 observations of red-legged frogs. I'm making those numbers up. You'll have to find what the actual numbers are. Okay, but once you do have the numbers, and once again, these are just made up. You can create a graph. If you click up in the top left part of the table you just made, so if you click on species, and then go up and click insert chart, Google's going to graph this for you. Handy dandy. So you can see different species down at the bottom, the tree frog, the red-legged frog, and the bullfrog, and also the number that are observed. And you can see just how many more tree frogs were observed than red-legged frogs or bullfrogs. Once again, your chart's going to look different because you need to calculate, you need to actually tally up the numbers yourself. One thing that is not very good about this chart is the title. So go ahead and give it a new title, and you can title it what your question was. So that's something like, what is the most common observed frog near Vashon? Very nice. You're going to want to copy this as a picture into your Google document that you're working on. And so if you click this drop-down menu, you can choose copy chart. Once you've done it, it's copied. Now you can go back into your Google document and then click the control button and V to paste. I'm going to challenge you to do one more thing here to make this a little bit more complicated. You can add another column for average call volume. And see if you can figure out what the average volume the tree frogs called at compared to red frogs, compared to bullfrogs. If we look back at the data, we can see that on average the call intensity was pretty loud for the tree frogs. It's pretty close to maybe it's 2 or 3. A little quieter for the bullfrogs for the most part. So could you figure out what the average is? You'd have to add all these up and divide by the total number of tree frogs observed. It looks like I made a mistake on my table. Average call volume, let's try average call intensity. Okay, that last column is for a challenge for you. See if you can do this. I'll be really impressed if you can, but do make sure that you at least include a data table for the number observed of each of these frogs.